First thing I need to do. All right. Now I'm going to call the meeting to order. And due to the nature of the declaration of a state of emergency due to the novel coronavirus known as COVID-19, pursuant to code 2.2-3708.2, this meeting is being held by electronic means via the web platform Zoom. And the catastrophic nature of this declared emergency made it impractical and unsafe to assemble a quorum in a single location. And the purpose of this meeting was to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue the operations of this public body. This meeting of Go Virginia Council is called to order at, we'll say 10 o'clock. And Kate, please, if you would call the roll to determine if a quorum is present.
All right, thank you. John Anzavino.
Present.
William Beal.
Here.
Sarah Calveric. Renee Daniels. Bruce Davis.
Here.
Jackie Davis. Jan Urquhart. Here. Val Folds. Steve Goodall. Joel Griffin. Marthea Haney.
Present.
Lisa Hall.
Here.
Shannon Kennedy.
Here.
Kim McClellan. Here. Rob Cortell.
Here.
Morgan Quick.
Here.
Jeff Sapersky.
Here.
Linda Worrell. And Kimberly Young.
Here.
And I hope that Anne Marie was keeping count and can confirm that we have a quorum.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I think we do. I would, Anne Marie, just so I don't forget, I think from reading the roll, we've got a couple of people that have missed at least 2 meetings in a row. And I think we need to notify them, according to our bylaws, that they need to make an attendance or otherwise they'll find their way off the council. And you can go back and look at the bylaws for the right wording of that. Are there any members of the public not on the agenda that wish to speak? Kate or Amy, did you receive any notice from anyone that wanted to address the council?
No, we did not.
Okay, then we'll move on. First thing on the agenda is the minutes or a draft of the minutes in your board package. Are the additions or amendments to the minutes? And I would appreciate a motion for approval.
I so move.
Thank you, Rob. Is there a second?
I'll second, Billy.
All right, thank you, Morgan. And all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, then the motion carries. We have a report from the executive committee. Rob Cortell is going to make that report since I was absent at the last meeting. Rob?
I am.
Yes, there's a. Did you not get the script?
No.
Oh,
I
would
did
you like? Would you like me to read?
Sure.
Okay. Good. Let's pretend this is Rob reporting. Since the last full council meeting, the executive committee of the council met in August, September, November, and December. The executive committee meetings in August and September, the consultants presented their recommendation for the growth and diversification plan update. These reports are in your package with the draft growth and diversification plan. At the September meeting, which is the one I missed, Riot presented their project under the ERR funding. This funding is for COVID-19 recovery and resilience. Their application was approved by the executive committee, but recommended by DHCD to be submitted under normal implementation funding. Riot resubmitted under that under the normal implementation or the normal funding. And since this council was unable to meet in October, DHCD allowed Riot's proposal to be submitted and approved to the state board conditional on this council at its next meeting approving the project. And that'll be the project today. At the November and December meetings, the executive committee discussed projects that were off track and modification to timelines, as well as to how to deal with these issues in the future. Changes to bylaws, some of which will be before you today, and comments made to the state board regarding Go Virginia. We have, I think those that were present and some of them we have, and we'll see this today, we have had, I'll go back to this, projects that were off track and modification. We felt we needed a little more structure around that process, that we were finding ourselves at the end, if you will, of the contract date or granting extensions, and then being at the end sometime post the original contract date, and the project not having been completed, or some of the goals, objectives, performance metrics that had been agreed by the grantee had not been achieved. And then we found ourselves in kind of this difficult situation of how do we deal with this? So we wanted to try to get in front of it rather than behind it. So going forward in the future, if we find that any grantee is running behind, we are going to ask them to come before the council or the executive committee, depending on timing, and basically do a presentation, talk to us about why those projects are off, rather than getting to the end, if you will. So we think that's just probably a little more professional way to handle it. Any questions about any of that? Okay, thank you, Rob. Excellent report.
Why, thank you. By the way, I noticed that on the agenda, it says you're giving it, so.
Yeah, but remember we talked about I missed that October meeting, or I missed one of the meetings.
I know, I'm teasing.
I missed the last.
But you did a fine job, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, sir. Next item up is old business, and which is the growth and diversification plan. And it in some ways, this has been going on forever, because I think it is probably about a year or so, but longer, that we have been rewriting our growth and diversification plan. It has been through a number of iterations. The executive committee has discussed it at its meetings. We have sent the full council out this report, actually for the last meeting that we were to hold and couldn't meet, and now for this one. So Kate, I'm going to turn this over to you, and you know, probably what I ought to say is Kate was our original administrative staff person from GWRC. GWRC, and did an excellent job for us, to actually, to the point that she got promoted into doing more things with them, and that's when we hired Jennifer. So Kate's kind of back filling in until we can find a successor for Jennifer. And so Kate's going to step back in and talk about the growth and diversification plan. And are you going to introduce Chip while you're at this?
Segue. So actually, we're going to have Chip do the growth and diversification plan agenda item. So just to tag on to what Billy said, hi, a lot of you are familiar faces, so it's good to see you again. I will be working with Go Virginia in this interim period as we look to fill Jen's position. And as a total side note, if you know of somebody who would be great, let us know. The position's posted on our website. We are actively recruiting. I'll introduce Chip Boyles and then also just mention that Anne Marie Klempin, who you guys all have been working with for a few months now, is also kind of taking a larger role during the interim period. So Chip Boyles is GWRC's new executive director. I think he's been with us almost 3 months. But he also has some Go Virginia experience. He was on the council in Region 9. So he's familiar and he's going to be providing some support as well during the interim. So with that, I will turn it over to Chip to talk about the growth and diversification plan.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Mr. Chair. Pretty much covered everything that I had. Just to myself, as Kate said, I've been the director here at GWRC since early November. Have really enjoyed being here in the region and look forward to working with each of you. Several of you I've gotten to know since I've been here. At least one of you I've actually known since prior to moving to Virginia, Mr. Ansabino, before I became the executive director of the Thomas Jefferson Planning District in Charlottesville. And it was there that I began working, I think, back around 2017 with the Go Virginia Council for the Charlottesville region. So I do have a little bit of experience there and hope I can be of some help to Kate and Anne Marie while we're going through this interim period and just moving things forward. As the chair said, you've already done a lot of work. There's been great leadership on the growth and diversification plan update. As you all know, this is a requirement of the Department of Housing and Community Development and the Go Virginia program. Our first G&D plan was adopted in 2017, updated in 2019, and now beginning in June of 21 began the work on our third plan. The results, it's been under review. As the chair said, the council has reviewed it, the executive committee, our local government partners throughout the 3 PDC regions have reviewed this, as well as the public and all economic development stakeholders. The plan itself, the results maintain the 6 targeted industries of the marine products, forest, wood products and paper, manufacturing, distribution and logistics, information and data centers, professional, scientific, and technical services. The 3 priority economic areas to grow our targeted industries also were entrepreneurship ecosystems, site development, and finally, workforce development. Each of the 3 priorities identify at least 2 to 3 areas, goals, objectives, and strategies for the Region 6 Council to work toward. These are detailed in the growth and diversification plan in your packet and is shared with all of our stakeholders many times up till today. Once approved, staff will work with the committee and set aside time at each council meeting to identify potential stakeholders, partners, and projects to meet the identified goals of the G&D plan. During these discussions, the council may begin to identify potential improvements and opportunities to the plan and consider recommendations to the Go Virginia Board for program changes that can meet our regions as well as statewide needs to best utilize the Go Virginia program. As required by DHCD, staff recommends approval of this 2021 Growth and Diversification Plan, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that we may be able to do. Mr. Chair, back to you. But you're muted.
Yes, I am. Sorry. Thank you. I don't know. There was no, never mind. I was going to go way off on tangent there. So are there any questions? Comments? Cries of outrage.
I move.
Well,
we
I
approve.
have one general comment and
Okay.
question. I see the data centers thing, and everybody in Virginia is going crazy about data centers, particularly up in Northern Virginia. But these things have huge environmental impact, negative impact. They're massive energy drains, and most of the energy going into them is not particularly clean, although some of them are now using solar, but we have a backlash against solar in some of these rural counties. I know my county has forbidden any solar farms, and I know there are others around the state. So is anyone at the state level, Chip, even thinking about this?
I would just say, having not worked with this in detail, I would say they're certainly thinking about it, but I think that is their intent is to let each of the localities, the regions themselves, decide those types of concerns. I think while we may have these concerns, other regions may be, quote unquote, willing to kill for data centers. So I think the important thing is for each region to decide for themselves. And it's one of the reasons why the growth and diversification is just a plan. It's something that we can continue to discuss, and we can amend it and revise it as we move forward if in fact data centers are something we want to prioritize less.
Well, and I guess the other thing about data centers is they don't really create many jobs per unit of money. They do create tax revenue, which is why so many jurisdictions like them, but they don't actually do anything for jobs.
So Rob, from the George Washington Regional Commission's footprint perspective, I know that this is a regional commission, but for us here in Fredericksburg, our partner localities have all gotten together and harmonized their taxing for data centers. So this is a big deal for the Fredericksburg region. So I know that we as a region here are supportive of data centers and have worked very hard to make the Fredericksburg footprint attractive for additional data centers.
I was wondering.
So the region has decided to overlook environmental issues, energy issues, and employment, low employment as a consequence of these things.
I'm questioning whether when we took this plan through the entire region and all the localities, did we get pushback from anybody about this issue when we went through the long process we've already been through?
I don't think most of these
No.
counties even read this.
Well, the economic development people, county administrators.
Yeah, but they're I'm not sure everybody, even among the economic development people, looks at detail. So
All right,
sorry
Felicia.
to be a cynic about it, Billy.
Yeah, thank you. So real quick, I want to make a couple comments, and I'm also new here. I think I missed roll call. So my name is Felicia Ainsa. I am the Director of Economic Development for Rappahannock Electric Cooperative. I work with a lot of data center projects. Our region is very attractive to them. And the economic impact to the environment is extremely different from what it used to be with these data centers. They're much more compact. They're going vertical instead of spreading out. The way that they cool, their use of water, their use of sewer, their use of electricity, everything is constantly getting more and more efficient. They're also looking more into trends to allow them to do their own energy on site, on top of their roof, shading the parking lots, those kinds of things to do solar. And there's more than one way. A lot of them are interested in 100% offset of all of their energy into renewable and eco-friendly options. And there's more ways to do that than just more solar farms. So they're very much aware of these things, and they are actually leading the industry in a lot of energy efficiency innovations, and they have the pocketbooks, frankly, to pay for them to get out on that front edge of innovation and to offset their footprints. And while it's not a lot of jobs, it's a lot of construction jobs while they're building, and it's a lot of indirect impact because the jobs they do have pay extremely well. They also tend to be very good citizens in the community as far as giving back, supporting school education, supporting those kinds of things, STEM and such. So just want to let you know that's from what I see.
So
That's the
is there,
trends they're pushing in.
so is there a way for us in here to say something about that encourage environmentally low impact data centers, low impact energy, environment, water,
Yeah.
et cetera?
And I've usually found that people who watch that the most is the county, because that's usually who's providing water and sewer and those kinds of things. So they have to be very careful about what they promise to a company versus balancing the entire county's future needs and growth.
Actually, I don't think that's true everywhere. In my experience in Northern Virginia, it really is not that. It's about the money.
They pay a lot in taxes, and all of that equipment inside every
Right.
3 years is completely obsolete. So they rip it out and replace it all. And then you're starting again at 100% value on those depreciation tables. It does support the economy quite a
And
bit
most of
for
the construction
county.
is one time. The internal stuff is purchased outside the counties.
So if we edit today, does this mean, like, what does that mean for now? This has come before us many, many, many times and has been
Yeah, I know.
available for review and edit many, many, many times. What does that mean if we change it today? Is it even open for being edited today?
I wonder if when we issue it, we could make a side letter that this region would like attention paid to the environmental, energy, et cetera, impact. Not necessarily addressed inside the report. Then it would be from from us outside of that, not subject to editing approval, whatever.
Mr. Chair,
Well, I don't think this council can speak about those issues for the region. I think we've got to reflect the feelings and desires of the municipalities within our region. So I think to alter this or to attach a codicil to it, we're going to need to go back to each of the regions or each of the municipalities and get their feedback on this. I don't think it's something we can do because we're not a political body, if you will.
Well, this isn't a political point of view. I mean, it's,
Yeah, I said that wrong.
I
This is-
began my
this is-
career at
this-
the
This is
EPA,
not,
so
I don't know that we're in the decision-making for this. I think if somebody came to us and wanted to, and I see you up there, Joel, I'll get to you in just a second. If somebody wants to do a data center and have us fund some sort of site development thing for it, then maybe we can consider that as part of the grant. But anyway, Joel, I see your hands raised.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to say I'm sort of confused by the conversation because if you look at historically data centers versus solar plants, I think they're both beneficial to the region. We should be pursuing both. That being said, solar uses as much water, if not more, than data centers. Solar is, while fantastic, large consumer of property, but not a huge tax benefit to the region. Most of those funds go outside of the region. And once the construction for solar is done, there's really no residual impact, right? Other than a few employees. Whereas with data centers, the secondary and tertiary benefits of having data centers from a technology standpoint are you're going to have engineers in the area who work on the IT equipment that's in those data centers. The restaurant and retail industry that benefits from those high paying jobs and those coffee shops and dry cleaners and all of those other small business enterprises that grow around those data centers. I mean, I think that's something real and measurable. And there's a reason that Loudoun County is the wealthiest county in the entire nation. And not to say that that's exclusively because of their ability to grow data centers, but I think the people who live in those areas have much more disposable income, and that is where the job creation comes from. It is not from the data center itself. It is from the people who work there, the companies that support those kinds of employees, those employees wanting to buy nicer homes and having disposable income to go out and shop, right? So if you're doing a side-by-side comparison of what creates more revenue for a region, without question, whether you look at it mathematically or whether you look at it philosophically, data centers wins hand down every time. So,
Well, I disagree with that assertion. The point of Go Virginia is to create jobs. And according to this report I'm reading on data centers, they tend to be relatively low unemployment. Typical headquarters manufacturing or shared service operations can have between 200 and 1,000 jobs on site. By comparison, the number of jobs at a typical data center can be anywhere between 5 and 30. So that is 2 orders of magnitude potentially.
Okay, Morgan, I think you were up next, then we'll ask Felicia for her comments.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I can't speak to the data center issue. You know, the issue with data centers in the very rural localities is really the availability of good high-speed internet to be able to run them. I can speak to the solar industry because Richmond County, we have been very active in solar over the past 2 years. The revenue to local governments in the solar industry has increased significantly through state legislation over the past 2 years. There are many avenues these days for revenue, especially when you're looking at the utility scale. We're probably somewhere around 5,000 acres of approved solar at this point in very rural parts of the county. We're looking at it as economic development for the county, because when I look at a project that is 130 megawatts, and I look at the return over 30 years of 10 or $12 million based off of the different revenue sources, you know, that's economic development for us. Now, we want to make sure it's done well. We want to make sure that it's sited in the appropriate locations that don't have an impact to our roadways and to our existing residential. But it is a revenue for these rural local governments. It is something that we have embraced the right way, and there is revenue in it now. 4 years ago, there was no revenue in solar for local governments, and there is now, as long as it's done the right way.
Okay, thank you, Felicia.
Thanks. One more comment. I used to work for Henrico County for many years before I came over. So I was there during the Facebook data center deals and a lot of those others. 1 million square feet, 100 jobs, each one of those jobs earning well over $100,000. Not a lot of jobs, but they paid extremely well, more than double our prevailing area wages. But also we saw, because we were getting a good clustering of data centers in Henrico, it was funneling an entire supply chain of development. We had all of these small local companies making the racks for the servers, doing the wiring, building air conditioning and cooling units, just all of the equipment and everything else that goes into them. It really funneled that entire supply chain. And that was actually a majority of our economic development projects, was for those small local companies that were supporting the data centers as well. So they do have ripples. It keeps going through the economy. And a lot of those manufacturing jobs are very much hands-on, high numbers jobs.
Okay, Kate, well, let me say first, I don't, you know, we've been dealing with the rewrite of this growth and diversification plan for my recollection is close to a year. And we've had different iterations and drafts, and we've had this stakeholder meetings and feedback and those sorts of things. But Kate, since you were around at the beginning when we did our first one and the data centers have been on there from the get-go, my recollection is that data centers were selected because, one, there was already a number of them within our region, Region 6, but primarily in Fredericksburg. And they represented, you know, higher paying jobs, small number, but higher paying jobs. and tax base to the region. And that is because they were already a cluster, is how they got into the growth and diversification plan. Is that your recollection?
Yeah, so the 6 priority clusters were selected because they were traded sectors, meaning they're traded outside of the state or bring in revenue from outside of the state, high wage sectors and high growth sectors. I'll also just mention, I think that data centers is one of FRA's, Fredericksburg Regional Alliances, and I'm seeing some head nods. That's one of their priority clusters as well. And I believe it's even one of the workforce development board's priority clusters. I was just on one of their calls last week for the Planning District 16 region. So, these sectors were picked very intentionally in alignment with other priorities already happening in the region. And, kind of from a economic analysis perspective, what should we be focusing our efforts on to really, move high paying jobs forward in the region? So thank you, Billy, for that history and prompting that history of trying to remember back 4 years. But yeah, that was where those came about.
So, can I read you another document here? Of nearly $3 billion in economic development incentives between fiscal years 2011 and 2020, roughly $837 million, or 28% of Virginia's overall foregone revenues, was tied to the state's data center exemption, according to a report from the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Commission. The exemption, under the data center exemption, a business can avoid paying taxes, sales and use taxes on certain equipment used for data processing, storage, retrieval, and communications. So, anyway, first of all, let me just go on record. I'm not against data centers and I'm not against solar. I'm for solar, but I think data centers are hyped up, and I don't think the job value is particularly high, and there's clearly a cost under the exemption, and it's also a cost in terms of economic development. Basically, they're saying $1 out of $3 in the Commonwealth of Virginia has gone to development of data centers, which is to the exclusion of other stuff. So just an FYI here.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll just add, adopting this growth and diversification plan today doesn't mean that it can't be looked at or revised. The intention is for this to be a living, breathing document, for these types of discussions to continuously bubble up and for the council to decide where they land on those issues. You also have the ability to review each application that comes forward to determine, does it create enough jobs for us to consider this a priority project? So I think, moving forward with adopting this growth and diversification plan so that we can meet our deadlines and move forward would be prudent, but that doesn't mean that this discussion can't continue and that you all might not make a decision at some point to revise it or amend it or, whatever that may look like.
Okay.
Yep. Great.
Yeah, I think if we could, I would like to get a motion and a second and approval for this. As concerns the data center, I think if Chip, if you and Kate and Anne Marie could poll the regional economic development people and just affirm their regions, their municipalities focus on these things and give us some feedback at the next executive committee. Maybe that would help move this thing along or give us a little clearer picture.
We'd be glad to, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I make the motion that we approve the growth and diversification plan as presented.
All right, thank
Donnie
you.
Zavino seconds.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, John. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
One abstention.
One abstention. All right. Okay, excellent. Our next action plan, and Anne Marie, if you were keeping roll, when you made the roll call, Joel Griffin was not present. And I saw he popped up obviously with a question. Is there any other member that's on this call that was not present for the roll call besides Joel?
Yes, I was not present for the roll call. Renee Daniels.
All right, thank you, Renee.
Any
Jackie Davis,
other-
I wasn't present either.
Oh, there, Jackie, good. All right.
Felicia Ainsa.
All right, let's move on to the next item, which I got to find it back here in my script, is the presentation application for the Riot Pre-Accelerator Program. And as I mentioned when I did the executive committee, this was one that was moved forward at the executive committee to DHCD, who expressed they basically said they didn't think it was a rapid response to COVID type application, asked them to resubmit under normal funding standards, which they did. Executive committee moved it forward to get onto the state board meeting, which happened shortly after this meeting. But subject to our approval. So with that, Kate, and I know Jen's on, so do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So this was actually approved by the state board at their December meeting. So they approved it conditional upon you all approving it after the fact. This is an almost $97,000 grant to implement a pre-accelerator program in the region. Riot will launch 3 6-week programs to help idea stage entrepreneurs launch new businesses. They will also hold 18 information sessions to assist people in the program. And this will serve as an additional pipeline to the currently funded accelerator program, which is the project in partnership with Stafford County Economic Development Authority and Riot. And we do have folks from Riot on the line, including Jen. So if you all have any questions about the application, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we are looking for your approval so that this project can move forward.
Okay, Jen?
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you on this side. We are excited to get this project up and running. We are planning on having our first cohort launch March 7th, with information sessions already being started around the region in February. Thank you to all of you who I've currently reached out to help set up those information sessions. And I'm happy to answer any additional questions you may have. Janet, do you want to? Jen?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was expecting a free-for-all. Jan, I see your hands up.
Yeah, sorry, my
Call from Lori B.
I'm getting a there. I'm getting
Can
a
we take the workforce development screen down, please? So we can see people better.
oh, anyway, I had a question when I went through, and this is partly because I'm a rather new member. I was confused about whether this has been scored and by who. I couldn't tell that by reading through the application, probably just because I don't know how to do it yet.
I don't believe that this application had been scored. We hadn't implemented the scoring process when we originally saw this application.
So therefore, it wouldn't need to be scored. Is that how that works?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, it came in under the old process, but it was reviewed by the executive committee and approved by them before going to the state board.
All right.
Janet, it looks like you're on mute.
I must have. No, I'm not on mute.
I don't.
No, Janet.
Yeah, I don't
Oh.
have any more questions. The process kind of confused me a little bit as to, because it's, I mean, for good reasons, everything's kind of backwards.
Just a little on this one. Are there any other questions?
All right, hearing none, we would like a motion from the council to approve the Riot Pre-Accelerator Program.
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Now we got a motion and a second. Any other questions, discussion? I think this, my recollection is this had a lot of good discussion in the executive committee. It was not a unanimous vote to move it forward to DHCD because there was one member of the executive committee that didn't feel like the ERR piece was the right slot for it. DHCD seemed to agree with that position, but it came back, and I think I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I think the accelerator program that we funded sort of indicated that we need a little work on before that to try to get more people in the pipeline to get to the accelerator program. And so I think this is a good start. It's not a lot of money, for the grant. And so we'll look forward to seeing the results as Tom and Jen move it forward. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
I believe as a supporter, I think I need to abstain from UMW. Because I think I wrote a letter of support.
Okay, good. We'll record that Kimberly.
But I am supportive of it, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Billy, I need to abstain as well.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Any other abstentions?
Joel needs to abstain.
Oh, Joel should abstain?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, good. Okay, we'll record that as well. Nominating committee.
Billy, sorry,
Yes.
this is Joel. Do you want me to abstain as well since I'm on the Stafford EDA?
Yes.
All right, can do.
All right, thank you. All right, we will move forward. Next thing, we've got a couple of pieces related to the nominating committee. Since our last full council meeting, John Wells and Ann Lewis have both retired from their work positions and also retired from the council. And the nominating committee was composed of John Wells, Ann Lewis, and Kim McClellan. And so John and Ann have both recommended replacements to their councils so that we have someone from REC, which is an important economic partner, but also key to the area. And Felicia has been active already in making comments. The other is Dr. Derek Aday, who is the Dean and Director of VIMS, and was unable to make it to the executive committee, but is here today. But the executive committee was able to hear from both of them. And we also need to reappoint Steve Goodall with West Rock. I want to say Meade West Baco with West Rock in West Point to the council. But the nominating committee, obviously being only one person, was unable to meet. So all the applications and reappointments are being brought forward without a recommendation from the nominating committee. But after we vote on these new members and the reappointment, then I've got a recommendation for new members of the nominating committee, and I have asked them, and they have agreed to serve. So that's a good thing. So if we could, we need a motion to appoint Felicia Ainsa. I hope I got that right. Derek Aday and Steve Goodall to the council.
I'll make that motion.
And I second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, could I just make one personal remark?
Sure.
I just want to welcome Derek. My wife, Michaela English, is on his advisory board, and I am on his technology fund advisory. And she has met, but none of us have met in person.
Great.
So welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, Derek, you've got big shoes to fill. John was a great member of this council, and certainly VIMS and the Sea Grant folks have been we have a pretty big grant out to them. That's actually a statewide grant that has been probably our biggest funding so far to date. But we look forward to working with you, and certainly VIMS is a key player in a lot of things and that are going on around Virginia and relating to our aquaculture.
Yep, likewise. Thanks.
And I also welcome all the others too.
I have asked John Anzavino and Linda Worrell to serve as members of the nominating committee. They have agreed. And so I would like, I guess I can, since I've made the nomination, I'll go ahead and move it. If there is a second, I would appreciate it greatly.
I'll second it.
Oh, thank you. I was getting a little worried. All of those in favor of appointing John Anzavino and Linda Worrell to the nominating committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and we'll let John and Linda abstain because we wouldn't want them voting for themselves. So wonderful. We're glad to have Felicia and Derek on the council, and Steve, who I don't think is on the line. We always appreciate your input and your willingness to do things, and certainly with West Rock being a big employer in the Middle Peninsula, you're a key player in this. Now I need to get back to where I'm supposed to be here. Hold on a second. Okay.
Bylaws.
No, I'm here. Okay, we've got to discuss some changes in the bylaws that are coming from some work the nominating committee did. You should have received the bylaws, and they were redlined so that you could tell more easily what the changes are. And Kate, I've got here now that you're supposed to be pitching the rest of this. So I'll sit quietly until you tell me to ask for a motion.
Anne Marie, do you mind pulling the bylaws back up so everyone can see them? Per our bylaws, these were sent out at least 30 days before this meeting so that you could see the changes before voting on them. As Billy mentioned, there are some red line changes. So I think they start on the third page. We updated the membership section to match what DHC's actual requirements are, just so that they're one-to-one with the state requirements. It doesn't really substantially change anything, but we have to have certain representation on this board. So that's the first change.
Kate, I did have a question about that first one.
Yes.
I'm sorry, not to prolong our time together here. If you go back to the very first red line where it says we've redlined shall be chaired by a citizen member. If that is removed, then that means that anyone on the board, are we saying that anyone, whether they are a government official or not, would be able to chair?
I think it's actually added back in underneath. So Anne Marie, if you can scroll down.
Yeah, I may have missed that. Sorry.
Yeah, the chairman, vice chairman, and a majority of members must have significant private sector business experience. So it is still saying that it needs to be, it was just rearranged to match what was in the state guidelines. So good question though.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And then if you can keep going. The other main changes here under the responsibilities. No, this is just a smaller change about developing an annual action plan. I think we're just gonna have that, I think still figure out what that process looks like. And then for duties of the executive committee, this was what I think Billy was mentioning, and actually both of these are in direct response to things you've seen happen today. So the first one is that if the council is unable to meet, an application that needs to go to the state board can be approved by the executive committee meeting and then subsequently voted on by the council when they're able to meet. So that's what we did on the Riot project today. And then the final one is if the nominating committee is unable to meet, the executive committee can do those nominations in their place. And I believe that is all of the edits. I'm happy to take any questions. Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the changes to the bylaws?
So moved.
Thank you. Bruce, is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. I think that was Rob. And all right, last call for questions or comments. Okay, if not, then we will vote, and all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you. Motion carries. The state DHCD was going to hold a stakeholder meeting. They had done this, gosh, I'm going to say 3 or 4 years ago. And it was a chance for the chairs and the vice chairs and our support staff to meet with the DHCD and the state board. And we were going to have a face-to-face meeting in Richmond, but that has changed. And now they're going to do 2 virtual meetings next week. And so I've asked Kate to report on some of the things that are going to be brought forward, and certainly this would be an opportunity for people who have opinions about those things. They could bring that forward. So Kate, can you, or Anne Marie, can you kill the screen that's there? And if you have a list of those items that you think are going to be, or what we sent through in 19 is the discussion. So it was 2 years ago. So anyway, Kate, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. So in the packet, Anne Marie, if you, oh, well, it's fine. There's 3 letters in the packet and they do kind of detail over time what you all as a council have voted on recommending to the state board. I think the 2019 one has, which is the last one in the packet, has kind of the most complete list. Some of those things have been adopted, some of them have not. Some of them have been adopted temporarily. So for example, they've reduced the match requirement temporarily. So I think the input session is just a chance for us to continue to voice, you know, concerns or recommendations. Anne Marie, if you go to the next letter, the last letter in the packet. And then there should, yeah, this bulleted list. You know, most of these recommendations that we've made in the past have been just related to program requirements that have hindered projects from coming forward. So, you know, high match requirements and lack of flexibility and where that match comes from and things like that. Another thing that's been noted is the Go Virginia not allowing projects within healthcare. So that's something that the executive committee brought up at their meeting as something to bring forward. And I know other regions are interested in that as well. At the executive committee meeting, there was also a discussion of having Go Virginia administered by the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, or VEDP, instead of DHCD. I don't know, where that would go, but these are just all suggestions that have bubbled up. But again, things that you all have written in formal letters to the board are around the match requirement, mostly around the match requirement, and then also expanding the time period to show a return on investment for some of these projects from 3 years to 5 years. And then also giving a little more flexibility on the definition of a traded sector. So, just basically allowing flexibility so that projects are not having to jump over so many hurdles to get to the finish line and meet all of the requirements of the program. So I believe Billy and Rob are both planning to attend the virtual stakeholder input session on February 1st, and Go Virginia staff will attend as well. So at least myself, and I think probably Chip and Anne Marie, but we're still figuring that out.
Yeah. So what was discussed at the executive committee meeting regarding our response? Was there a list generated?
The list that I have is that you wanted to allow funds to be used for healthcare and tourism related projects. Sorry, I missed the tourism piece.
Right.
And then also having Go Virginia administered by VEDP instead of DHCD.
I would like to double down on those things. I think they're all correct, and they are more reflective of the actual conditions of this region. I also think that moving it to VEDP would make it more consistent with its objectives, which are job development and commerce. It's really a commerce thing. And I suspect that it would be looked upon reasonably well in the current administration, given the Secretary of Commerce, Karen Merrick, and the governor work together in a program, Virginia Ready, and for developing apprenticeship kind of base jobs, things like that.
Yeah. Kate or Chip, have you been on any conversations with any other regions regarding what their input may be on these? It may help prompt some comments.
We did have a statewide support organization call last week, and I don't remember hearing anything outside of what you all have already raised from the other regions. Definitely, I heard an echo on the healthcare consideration. Certainly the match, I think, is on everyone's mind. But Chip, did you hear anything else that I'm forgetting?
I do think the tourism has come up in a couple of regions, but that's about it. I haven't heard any other push of trying to move the organization to VEDP.
Okay. Comments from board members about things they would like us to bring forward. I've got one, and it's I don't know, maybe it's chasing windmills or something, but it just seems like the process is too slow. That we have businesses and grantees that want to get things done. It just seems like it's taking us 6-9 months to get from them having the concept to us getting approval, which if it happens to be one of our 2 or 4 year colleges, then that may actually put them off another 6 months or a semester or longer in getting the thing stood up. I don't know. I'm not sure I know what the answer is, other than there probably would have to be more state meetings and more support organization DHCD meetings in order to move these things along. But it just seems to me the process takes too long.
I agree with that completely. That's
Thank you, Shannon.
that's an issue for us.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah, Billy, I've said it before when we talked about this, but unless or until Go Virginia moves at the speed of business, it's not going to be able to help business.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish they could, in some ways, I wish they would delegate more.
So I didn't come up with them and make sure you don't know that valuable habit.
Yeah. It may be one of the ways they could do this, Lisa, would be to delegate more things to the council. I think, in the, whatever it is, 6 years we've been doing this, 5 years, that we've only had one grant move forward that the state tabled. And I think we've learned a lot about how to approve these things or not approve them in the process since then. Maybe we've had 2. But it would seem that if they could give us more approval, that would certainly speed the process up in some ways. But anyway, other thoughts?
Hey, Billy, this is Morgan. I know it's probably a long shot, but I wish there was an allowance that counties and towns could work together on projects. And I don't think that's allowed currently. But there are a lot of counties that have pretty good working relationships with their towns. It would be nice to be able to do that, as opposed to separate jurisdictions, county versus county. A county and a town within that same boundary would be nice, but I don't know that that's going to go anywhere.
Yeah, and so just to clarify, you're certainly allowed to partner with a town, but it does not count towards the 2 participating localities, I think is what Morgan's getting at. So for a county to partner with a town inside their own county doesn't count towards the 2 participating. But that doesn't prevent you certainly from partnering. And I think we did have, Westmoreland County partner with Montrose on the project, for example, but it does not count towards that 2 participating localities requirement.
Okay. All right, well, I'll give people a few more minutes to think about things they want to add. Kate or Anne Marie, I think it would be appropriate then for us to have a letter, go to DHCD, and Rob and I get a copy of it, since I don't know whether we're even going to be in the same meeting or not, since they gave us a choice of being in 2, and talk about our recommendation is to include healthcare and tourism. Then we can certainly, ask that the state consider. Of course, I'm not sure this is the right forum, but we can certainly throw it out there as the state consider moving oversight to be EDP, is because we think it's a better fit with the economic development role of Go Virginia. And then, I do think we need to add in there that we're concerned about the slow process that we think is resulting in lost opportunities for us. People are avoiding us because it just takes too long.
Billy, it's Bruce. Have you had any conversations with other regions and how they feel about the pace of things?
Not recently. I had a couple of shoot, by now, Bruce, would be a couple of years ago when we actually had opportunities for face-to-face meetings. And even then, Chairman Farrell thought that we were moving too slow, and actually used the same words Lisa did, that we need to get this thing moving at the speed of business. And it just didn't happen. So I do think there's some frustrations there.
Billy, this is Linda.
Hi, Linda.
By saying it's moving too slow is really addressing part of what the problem might be. Is it that the application needs to be reviewed? I mean, it's not just the process, but it's the application and what we're asking for. And are we asking for the right things? And are we measuring the right things? And are they, I mean, if we look at the ones that are on track and not on track, or where we've had problems, is there any issue there that we need to think about?
Well, I think that's an excellent question, Linda. And maybe Shannon or Kimberly or Lisa.
Yeah, I think
because they've been involved in some of the things can speak to some of that.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One, as a council, we have gotten much better at looking at the metrics on the other end and advising on those. So I think that's a critical component in framing up the metrics for reality as well as success. The other thing that we've done recently, I believe, is, well, I believe because I can't tell you exactly the date, but the scoring mechanism will serve to help us as well as a council in doing that. So I feel confident that we now as a board have more experience and we have better tools to assess where we would see successful projects.
You wouldn't change the application at all?
I'm sorry?
You wouldn't change the application at all, or just review the application at all?
I think the only place that I might change it is with, again, going back to the metrics and maybe some better or enhanced descriptions.
Okay.
To give applicants a little bit more insight into what we're looking for, but I don't know that I would change the application itself.
Okay, thank you.
Linda, the entire thing has to be, when approved, put into the DHCD format in their online application system, CAMS. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but so we're very prescribed in what has to be asked and what the information that's required. And I think we've pared it down. I think we've got it down to pretty much of a science. Not that things can't be tweaked or changed or whatever, but it's been revised several times, and also the DHCD process has been revised several times. So keeping up with their requirements will necessitate changes moving forward too.
Well, that maybe if we end up with BDP, that in itself may give us an opportunity to change. I understand what you're saying and I appreciate the input. Thank you. But then if we do end up under EDP, I wonder if it'll look different. I'm good or bad. I don't know, right?
Yeah, maybe one of those better the devil you know than the one you don't know, huh? Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I can also add some context as staff. I mean, to echo Lisa, the Region 6 application mirrors the state application. So, we've built it that way so that there's not more information needed once we go to the full state application. The timeline is built around the state board meetings. They meet quarterly. So that, is a constraint. I will say there's a lot of lead time built in, but the timeline is really meant to help facilitate projects from idea all the way to full application. And we've had an application come in recently that I think has taken full advantage of that and had staff on several planning calls. And so I think as a result, you will be seeing a very strong application coming forward. So I would say that that's been successful, but it does slow down the process. A lot of these applications require new partnerships to be created, and that takes time. So I think sometimes that slows it down. And then, you know, just finally, I think Linda made a great point about the actual administration of the application. So once you get across the finish line of having a project approved, then the real work starts of actually getting it off the ground. And sometimes that's been the most challenging piece for us. So I think sometimes applications or projects have benefited from doing a little bit more due diligence in the planning phase, and then that helps them kind of move into the actual administration of the grant a little bit more successfully. But we've also, I mean, to Kimberly's point, we've learned a ton from, you know, successes and from failures. And so I think we've tried to implement a lot of things along the process that would help guide projects further along. I certainly think if this project were, or if this grant were administered by VEDP instead of DHD, it would look very different. But, you know, certainly we can try to kind of highlight some of the actual, you know, hindrances that make the timeline lengthy and what that might look like. So thank you all for your feedback.
Anything else? Any other input? Probably would help if the state board would consider meeting every other month rather than quarterly. That could move things along, but all right, then we will move to the next item on the agenda, which is the information items. Some of it has to do with project status, I guess. There you go. Kate.
Yeah, so I'll just run through these so that we can get everybody off in time for lunch, early lunch maybe. But there is a status update on all of the projects in your packet. I'm happy to take any questions that anyone might have on that. Otherwise, just for your information. The next item was the COIA training reminder. So Anne Marie will be reaching out to each of you to update your COIA training, which is a requirement of being on this council. Many of you may have already completed this for your jobs or other boards that you serve on. So if you do, please just let Anne Marie know the date that you completed your most recent training. And you do not need to complete the financial audit. So we'll send all of that to you. An update on the Workforce Development Board, which is the board that Jackie oversees. So Go Virginia Region 6 has been approved to join that board. Jen Morgan was our representative until she resigned, and I am filling in temporarily. And then once the new staff member is identified, our intention is to have that person serve on the Workforce Development Board. Let's see.
Can I ask a question? Jackie, do we Region 6 Council need to approve anything relative to Kate serving as a temporary member of your board?
I don't think we do. I think just having her filling in for Jen right now will be fine until you find somebody more permanent.
All right, thank you.
And then we'll do the approval.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. The next update is on the state board meeting. So they did meet in December, as we mentioned, and the big news for us is that they did approve the Riot pre-accelerator application, which you all have now approved, and we will go into contracting for that. There is a financial report included in your packet. I think the main takeaway is that we do have about $3.5 million available in project funding. So certainly, you know, we want to try to drum up some more projects and potentially some more larger projects. We have had 2 applications come in the last week. So we'll be reviewing those and reaching out to the appropriate working group members, sorry, for those applications to be reviewed. And then the final item under information items is just letters of support that were written between the last meeting and this meeting. So those are in your packet for your review. Happy to take any questions. Otherwise, that's all for the information items.
Questions, comments? Okay. Our next meeting is scheduled for VIMS, Davis Hall Boardroom down in Gloucester, Virginia. Which you haven't been down there, it's a neat place. You know, maybe Derek can arrange for a tour either before or after the meeting or something for folks to do that, to tour that. Any questions? Any comments? All right. Then it would be appropriate at this point, if all hearts and minds are clear, that we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? I heard a second somewhere. Okay. All have a nice rest of your week. It was good seeing everybody virtually, and maybe one of these days we'll get back to face. But anyway, thank you for your time and your input. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.